My name is Todd Argyle. This is MCS 353, the Cubscout Roundtable Breakout. Course objectives. By the time we're done, we want to be able to explain the importance of all the types of breakouts. We want to define each of the elements of a breakout for Roundtable and have some ideas of how to apply unit service and utilize the quite vast national resources that they've given us. With a small group like this, yeah, just speak up when you feel like it. Okay, parts of a roundtable. Why don't we take a minute? You can, if you know how to use the annotate tool in Zoom, you can try that. You can type it there. You can say it out loud. Yeah, Dan's figured it out.
Kind of hard on an iPhone. I tried to write safety moment.
Safety moment. Great. Okay, I got one, flag ceremony. If you can't write it or figure out the annotate tool, just say it out loud. Is that all we do? Of course, we want to be safe.
Well, we do have the breakouts.
Okay, so we have breakouts.
Nobody's mentioned that one yet.
Okay, good.
Nobody's mentioned networking.
Networking. That's my favorite part. No.
By the way, I doubled roundtable
Barrel.
attendance with the networking just by setting out a $2 thing of cookies, because everybody will gather around and eat the cookies and they don't head for the door.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a cookie section, I highly recommend it.
No rules here. We can keep going. Okay. Okay, I think we got most of them. Let me, I really liked the safety moment. It looks like he was in a car crash, so.
Fat finger and an iPhone screen.
Let me see if we got all of them. Well, announcements, those can be important. Opening, we got that. Oh, we missed it. Songs, skits, run-ons. This is Cubs. We've got to have that. We had our breakouts, a closing, networking. Yep, we got networking. So other than maybe songs, skits, and run-ons, I think we got there. So that's an important part of a Cub roundtable. Okay, why? The question of why do we have leader position specific breakouts? Now, some councils, we're rebuilding. So in our district, when we have our the Cubs is breakout, and we have, maybe a dozen people at our very best in our district. So we don't always have separate, den leader, Cub master, committee chair breakouts. I don't know, maybe yours are different. You do separate, leader role position breakouts in your district?
We just do Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and mentoring, and then everybody together before the breakout.
Okay, so the breakout is Cubs. That's similar to us. Chad, how about you?
We've been kind of smaller since COVID. I'm still kind of new to it, so my experience with being leaders, but in the post-COVID, so just the last couple of years, and for the first part of it, they weren't doing roundtables at all. So they've only started back up, I think, January of 22. And yeah, it's hard to get many leaders there at all. We're lucky if we've got a dozen people, and half of them are unit commissioners or roundtable commissioners or what have you, and fill in multiple roles. So typically, we have, one or two representatives from my pack and one or two from one other pack who are also leaders in a troop. And so there's not a lot of sharing going on, not a lot of even breaking out to the point of being Cub Scout versus troop, yet alone position specific.
Okay, so I think I'm on the right track here. These slides in the program, talks about having a breakout for all these different things, which is awesome. That's the goal. We want to have enough people there that works. Okay. We want to have assistant roundtable commissioners for Cubs for each of those. Until then, okay. Until then, it's a good idea to include something for everybody. Maybe you have, if you have 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, give 10 minutes to den leaders. Give, 5-10 minutes to your committee members. Give 10 minutes to the Cub Master or something that's relevant to the pack as a whole. That way, everybody gets something specific to them. Okay. And at least, hopefully, we're not all in one round table with Scouts, BSA, and Cubs for the whole time. Hopefully, we at least have that breakout into Cubs. Okay. We are here. Why do we do this? We're there to first, give people the skills, the how, to do their job. Okay, they're working with the youth all the time. We want to give them the skills to do their job, but we also want to lift them up. We want to give them the will to do it as well. I'm sure if you've done any of the commissioner trainings, you've heard that, the skill and the will to do. Okay. So this is going to go through each of these types of breakout sessions. So if yours isn't there yet, to where you have, sub breakouts of each of these leader specific, keep in your mind, okay, this is for that 5-10 minutes that's devoted to the den leaders, or those 5-10 minutes devoted to, say you have some visiting den chiefs. Okay. Whoop. I went too far. Cubs is fun. Okay. We should have program specific content. And often it's a good idea to model your roundtable after, say, a pack meeting or a den meeting. Now, do the things that you do in those situations. Have cheers. Okay. If your Cub roundtable doesn't have cheers, you're missing out. Okay. If your Cub roundtable doesn't have skits, maybe it's a pre-recorded skit from some Cub Scouts. If you don't have it, you're missing out. And it should be a discussion. We had one of our first back to in-person roundtables this last week. COVID's been long and we've been virtual, and it was good to be back in person. And we actually sat at a round table. It was really good, and I didn't have to speak a lot. The less the commissioner has to speak, probably the better. More that they can listen and support, that's great. Let's go to group engagement. Let me give one example, and then maybe we can give some other examples of how you get group engagement in a Cub Scout roundtable. We had May the 4th be with you. Our roundtable was on Star Wars Day on May the 4th. And so after some of the more serious things, maybe talking about youth protection and some different things, we played a game. It was called the Arrow of Lightsaber game. We had balloons that we had to balance on the end of pool noodles that were made to look like lightsabers, and you had to give the scout oath and law while you balanced it. Okay, so it got us standing up, got us moving and engaged. Maybe you could each give me an example of how you have or how you could get engagement during a Cub roundtable. We'll start at the bottom this time with maybe Maddie.
Just didn't know I was at the bottom, so
It's just how it comes up on my screen.
it's just how it comes up on your screen. So different things for engagement at Roundtable. I see all kinds of things. One of the I was just recently invited in Ohio to a roundtable. It was an in-person roundtable, and they had a share night. So you were supposed to bring something like a tool or something that you have that other people might be able to benefit from. Someone had a really neat walking stick that came into different pieces, and inside of one piece was it would screw apart and it had a flashlight and a knife and a whole bunch of like a utility walking stick. And someone brought in a bunch of different sizes of Dutch ovens, and so they had brought in all these different things that they use camping or on outings or to teach knot skills. And you could walk around and talk to people, and that was a really engaging, fun roundtable. It was kind of like a show and tell night.
Good. It's all it. If it's something that the Cubs would enjoy, do it at Roundtable. That's what leaders enjoy too. Thank you, Maddie. Okay, now we switched around. Now Dan is on the bottom.
So I have found I really like the Cub breakouts where we take a random activity from one of the ranks and really do a deep dive and do the activity. And it's just kind of interesting to see how other leaders do things. And so, one of the food activities for, I think it was Tiger even, was just doing like ants on a log, but instead of using celery, it became ants on a toilet seat with sliced apples. And so just kind of a fun way to do it. I've also found I really like to play the video, one of the videos that is in the Roundtable resources, and then just ask the questions. By the end of the night, we are so far away from that video and the questions, but we've probably stayed past our time by 10, 15, 20 minutes, and I really like that engagement.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. If you have a clear objective, you really can find your way through wherever it takes you. Okay, just always having a clear objective. Sometimes where you think your path to get there isn't always there. So being open, I like that.
Yeah, any opportunity to just get the people talking to each other, then I figure whatever their need is, whatever's at the top of mind, that's going to eventually come out. And it's really just to get that talking started. And if I get everybody really engaged talking to each other, I think it's been a successful roundtable.
Good. And also, that's my objective today with you. Yes, these are the slides given to us by National, and we're going to cover the content, but how we get there may not exactly always match what every point that comes up here on the slides is. So I hope that's okay for you. Chad, how have you or could you bring engagement to a Cub Scout roundtable?
Yeah, good question. Like I said before, since we haven't really had the breakouts, but the way things have kind of been working so far is, there's a topic for each joint roundtable, and the district leadership has been engaging, and they've, you know, reached out to our pack and other packs. If there's a pack that they know that's particularly doing well in one particular area, then we've been asked to give a presentation to those present, and what we're doing, and then that leads to discussion, and so it's kind of more of a higher level thing than kind of the nitty gritty. I like the ideas of, you know, possibly doing a deep dive into a particular activity or things like that. We're not at that point yet, but with the limited number of people there, just kind of having the icebreaker of having a, you know, one pack share something that they're doing that seems to be particularly successful, and then opening it up to discussion on how the other packs, or, you know, troop leaders who were previously in a pack, how they handled the same type of activity or same type of concern, that it's generated some good discussion, and some good ideas have come out of that with the people that we do have there.
I like that. To focus on what they are doing well. I mean, yeah, like you've heard before, Crossroads of the West Council, we're rebuilding. I have, in a whole county, we have 9 packs, where before we were, a few years ago, I think we had 3 districts, 3 or 4 districts where there's 1. So focusing on that positive, highlighting them, and maybe asking them to give something, you know. I think nothing helps engage the unit leaders better than having them come and share. So, okay.
Yeah, I got talked into taking over the Boy Scout Roundtable when I did a Philmont breakout, just to kind of hype up Philmont, and brought in 60 people. It was the largest one in a long time for our district. And then 2 months later, the attendance was 2. The month after that, the attendance was 1. And then I took over, and now we're about, not quite 2 dozen. And so it's kind of, it's like, oh, I figure, I guess I can't do worse than that.
No, they're not going to come if they're not involved. Okay.
No, and the engagement that you mentioned is just absolutely key.
Good. Good. Okay. I think we talked some about hands-on experience a little bit. Dan talked about, I think it was Dan, about a sharing night. One thing that I found, if it's a virtual roundtable, which a lot of ours are now, is sending out, if it's going to be something that they can do with their hands, a project of some kind, give them the heads up so that they can gather materials. It used to be that we could, you know, meet and have everybody there, and when we can, that's great. But when we can't, come up with a simple list of materials. Maybe it's doing something with a rubber band or balloon or whatever it is, that you can have hands-on experience doing it. If that's, like others mentioned, doing one of the Cub Scout, you know, den activities, tell them what the materials are for that beforehand so that they can have them on hand. Okay, coaching and mentoring. The roundtable commissioner or the assistants, and they should mentor the den leaders during the breakout, or Cub Masters. So who knows the difference here between coaching and mentoring? If you've done Wood Badge, that's talked about a lot there in some of the trainings. I personally like mentoring better, but sometimes coaching is required. I'm going to involve you, Kenny. Can you hear me?
To me, a coach is somebody that's kind of on the sideline, and you know, in a game or whatever, and just kind of giving directions, and expecting the person to know what I want them to do, and I'm just reminding them that kind of thing. But a mentor is somebody that you would have lots and lots of conversations with, and give them opportunities to serve, but still be there to teach. Also, as a mentor, you a person would be available for somebody to come and ask questions about, and then go out and do it.
Okay. Yeah. So coach, yeah, definitely does. I see mentoring as a much more long-term commitment. Developing a relationship. A coach can give advice, be there, and we do both during Roundtable. Sometimes we have people that come once. Sometimes we have people that we know them from a long time, and we've developed a relationship of trust with them. So we talked about this already, but picking a particular adventure. If you have a whole group, you're not just talking to den leaders of the wolf den. Your audience may be all the den leaders, cub master, committee chairs, everyone else. Maybe you pick a general topic like, water activities, or maybe it's outdoors and hiking. And you can cover the adventures of that particular and the nuances of those particular adventures. Okay. Hot topics. Who here has gone on the commissioner resources and found the hot topic videos that National has? Raise your hand if you have. Maddie has. Okay. Simple way to find it. They have, and now that they've been doing things virtually for some time now, they have a whole host of hot topics to choose from, but also they're constantly updated. So you can get something that National Council wants people to know now that's relevant. And maybe you can scroll through, and there are some from the past that you believe are relevant because you're the commissioner, you know them, you know what unit service they need. Okay. And I think at the end of the slide, we have the resources URL that you can go to get those hot topics and safety moments. Here's a question. Anybody can answer. What meetings in Scouts should have a safety moment?
All meetings.
Exactly.
That was an
Anybody have a
easy
different
answer.
point of view? Okay. Does that mean College of Commissioner Science? Yes. Okay. They didn't have one. We'll have to get on them for not having a safety moment. Maybe we will at the end. But yes, all our meetings should have a safety moment. Some longer than others. If it's before a really adventurous activity or a pack overnighter, have a safety moment. Okay. And sometimes our district has a very specific topic. Maybe it's recruiting or something that we should include. This last one here is really important. A topic, I would add topics requested by units and scout leaders. I think this is sometimes where we miss. We have our agenda and we're not listening. A roundtable can almost completely be filled with the topics requested by units and the Cub Scout leaders. Now maybe there's a few things that of information that we need to disseminate and bring down that are important. But by and large, we need to listen. So that means some prior planning and asking, at each roundtable session and in each breakout, and listening, what are the things that your unit needs? While back, we were having a lot of presentations on things that the pack would do on pack meetings and the themes that they might choose, whether it was Pinewood Derby or a blue and gold. And I asked, what do you want to hear? What do your units need? And resoundingly, they said, oh, we need more things specific to den leaders and that small group and how to plan our den meetings. So that's what we're doing. Okay. Anybody have a comment there? And move on.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, please.
One of the really neat things about listening to den leaders and then addressing things at roundtable is you can really serve those packs. Like, for example, if they're struggling with figuring out how to do field trips or they don't know how to do that properly, I mean, you can bring the fire department in to your breakout session, and then those den leaders get training directly from them on fire safety and specific adventure requirements that they could talk about. But then they also now have a connection with someone at the fire department and can set up field trips to take the pack there. And so roundtable commissioners can really facilitate things for units and really help them to do things that they didn't know how to do or that they need help making those connections. So roundtable's a really special place for that sort of thing.
Thank you, Manny. It's also something that sometimes is forgotten is that roundtable commissioners don't have to do all the instruction. Bringing in an expert, like she said, is it keeps things fresh. People show up and go, okay, maybe you put out a flyer or an email saying, hey, we have this special guest. Special guests, whether they be fire department or maybe a special guest is a den leader, in your district. That's you can highlight them and show exactly what they are doing well, and they have a really great idea. So thank you, Maddie. Okay, it is a round table. Round table, a conference for discussion or deliberation by several participants, also the participants in such a conference. I don't feel bad when there are items in our round table, unless they're critically important for safety of the youth. I don't feel bad if we don't get to everything. If I'd listened to everyone in the room or in the chat or in the Zoom meeting, and everyone has a voice, I feel that we're accomplishing what we're supposed to. Okay. So my question to you is, how do we make it open? How do we make an open discussion? In the group this small, it's not too hard. In a group, when you have more than 10 or so, people seem to close off. How can we get people to discuss? If anyone has a comment or a method that works good for them, go ahead and speak up.
In our roundtables, they typically follow the schedule pretty strictly, but then after getting through the agenda, then okay, meeting's adjourned, and now let's just open for discussion. That respects the time of people who are on a schedule and need to get out of there. But a lot of the really good information sharing certainly comes from that just kind of open-ended discussion afterwards, whether it's on the topics that were discussed during the roundtable or it's just something that somebody wants to bring and get some information on from the other leaders there that those seem to be the more valuable part of, having everybody in the room than what the particular agenda for an individual meeting might be.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned respecting those that have prepared. It wasn't our district executive's fault at our last roundtable, but she had been given 10 minutes and she took 40. It was a great presentation on recruiting, but it was really difficult for those, including myself, that have prepared. So having a dedicated time that people know is coming to discuss, to ask questions, whether that's at the Cracker Barrel or whatever it is, having that fixed time is a great time. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Oh, we have Doug Kosai.
I tried to sneak in surreptitiously, but apparently that didn't work.
No, Doug, I'm going to involve you. How do we involve everyone in a roundtable? How do we get them discussing and not closed off?
Oh, that's a good question. I liked some of the things that I saw you do the other night at our roundtable in our district, where you had a really fun activity that kind of pulled everybody together. And I think that can be a great way to kind of start things, where you just draw people together and make sure that they are all participating. And once they're all participating, then they're more likely to stay together and open up and be willing to discuss, as opposed to kind of remaining kind of closed off and shy.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug. With questions, sometimes come questions that you don't know how to answer. And slides here talk about an example of a question that came up. Can you use it says a flag on the moon for the Pledge of Allegiance? I thought a better question might be, can you use a flag on someone's scout shirt for the Pledge of Allegiance? That's a question that might come up. Sometimes the den doesn't have their flag that they use. So can you use your flag on your uniform for the Pledge of Allegiance? Well, what if you don't know? It's not in the flag code of the United States. As far as I know, I've read it a couple times. How do you answer a question that you don't know the answer to? Commissioners are supposed to have the answers, right? Well, it's okay to say, I don't know, I'll find out. Okay. That's part of the role of commissioners, is to find out, to bring in resources greater than what they are. So that makes for an open discussion. Instead of making it up, you find out and you bring in someone who knows, or the answer. Okay, we talked about what makes up a roundtable. What are the elements of a breakout? And surely our breakouts come in many different shapes and sizes. And getting the resources from national, from our local councils, from our district executives. I make sure that they always work for us. I keep them busy. Katie, our district executive, will let you know that. She's great. Okay, we have 4 or 5 minutes. What questions do you have? What other comments? What would you like to know?
Do you have any traditions at your roundtable that you do? Like something fun that you do every month at roundtable?
Yeah, we usually We usually make fun of our district commissioner, that's Doug Kosai. But
Really easy to do.
no, we don't make fun of them. We're scouts, we're kind. At our roundtables, I do like our as we end our breakouts, we usually come back and have just a general discussion. We have our Cracker Barrel. Virtually, it's not as fun. But this week when we had our in-person roundtable and we actually had a in-person real food Cracker Barrel, people were there for more than an hour and they were able to exchange information and ideas in a way that maybe wouldn't be possible in another format. So that's been a good one that we've had is the Cracker Barrel, whether virtually or not. So I think that's probably why we were invited this time to bring something fun for our College of Commissioner Science, because Doug likes to do that.
I like to remind people that the parking lot meeting is usually the more important meeting with Roundtable than the Roundtable itself. And because that's where you get the just open engagement, free exchanging of information among leaders. And you know what? If the church is locked up and people are still outside talking, I absolutely love it.
That happened at the round table that Todd was just talking about. It was our first in-person roundtable in over 3 years because of COVID. I should say in-person, indoors. But yeah, as Todd said, after the meeting was officially over, the Cracker Barrel and the after Cracker Barrel discussions went on for about an hour. We finally had to kick people out of the building so we could lock up. And there were still people talking in the parking lot. So yeah, one idea that I'll share of something that was kind of fun in a district that I used to belong to, and maybe we need to think about resurrecting this, Todd, in our district, was the master of ceremonies kind of had a way. He was really good at dad jokes. He collected dad jokes, and it was just kind of what he was known for. And he would always sprinkle 4 or 5 dad jokes into his opening period when he was doing announcements and things like that. That was a lot of fun. Always recognized people when they were new too. That was really important.
They had a fun tradition in a previous incarnation of our district that was giving awards. Cub Scouts like awards and to be recognized. If we're not recognizing our leaders in our Cub Scout roundtable breakouts, we're missing out too. Finding out what they're special at and what achievements they've done, whether it's for attendance, whether it's for special project they have done, we should recognize them. So that's something that I've done before, but maybe not currently is happening. So we could do that.
Great idea.
If you have something else, please speak up. I apologize for sometimes my disorganization with slides and things, but I hope that you got something that you can take back to your units that will directly benefit youth. Okay. Thank you.
One thing that I always used to like to do is make sure that I got people involved in the breakouts